I'm Jolie Hawkins, and I do Ukrainian Easter eggs, which is called, the art form is called pasanki, and it is a wax relief process that is done on eggs. And it's been around for thousands and thousands of years. You're waxing just kind of like batik, but you're doing it on a three-dimensional object. You're doing it from light to dark. You always work with your lightest colors. So the first step is you wax an egg, and wherever you put it's a beeswax like this. You put, wherever you put the wax, it repels the dye. And so then you dye it, oops, this is in the wrong order. You dye it into the next lightest color. And when it comes out of the dye, then you dye whatever you want to be that next color. Then you put it back in the dye and color the next darker color until the point, right, this is an example of the very same similar egg. And when you're all done waxing, it looks like this, covered with layers of wax. And then you remove the wax and you melt it off. And you can melt it over your candle, or you can pop it in the oven on a low temperature, and it just melts the wax. When I first started doing this, I did a lot of eggs that are they're not blown out. Like this is one of the first eggs I did, and it's got a yolk in it. And so it's slowly evaporating. And these are eggs that my grandmother did. She was Ukrainian, and she used these very primitive little tools. They're just a rolled piece of copper tied on with a floss or a thread. And then she used a paraffin, a clear paraffin, put it on the stove and melted it. And she made our family, there was 6 kids in her family. She would make, these are her eggs when she was older, but she had real fine lines like these when she was younger. But they were made with just the Pez dye. And we would get a dozen of them every Easter, and we would just eat them like we'd eat regular Easter eggs. So when she had gotten older, my mom did save some of the eggs so that, you know, you could see what it was like. But they were all very clear like this. And when you put clear paraffin on, you cannot see where your lines are. She did this all from just memory or enough. I don't know how she did it. It was amazing to me that she could do these fine lines with clear wax. Because the beeswax, you can see here, is dark, and you can kind of see where you're going. So when I start an egg, I'm preparing it with like a pencil guide, and then I start to wax where I go. Over the years, I used to go ahead and leave the yolk in. I'm doing this particular pattern right now on this egg because this is a solid egg. It's almost empty. I obviously did it in 2007. And it still isn't completely evaporated. So I thought, well, you know what, to make these so that you could give them away regularly, you might want to blow the egg out. And that's another option. And so you can see on these eggs here, you just drill a hole right in the center. You're going to go just kind of in the center of the egg and apply pressure with this tool. It looks like it's the end of a nail. You can kind of see it's just a sharp, and I'm sure you could use a nail. This is nice because it has a nice little stop. And then what you want to do is you want to stir the yolk and everything in there. So you just break the sack and everything. And this is a German egg blower. It's like an accordion effect, and it pushes the air through the needle, and so that's how come you can get away with just one little hole. And so then you just start to apply pressure. And for quite a few years I had just done the designs on a raw egg and blew them after I was at that final stage. But you know, I'm actually having more success with just blowing them ahead of time, and so that you have to weight them into the dye, because they go into these little dye baths over here, and they float, of course, because there's nothing in them. But you can just seal the whole of the egg with wax and then weight the egg into the dye. So, okay, so this is pretty much empty, and there's your egg. The nice thing about this art form is it is really, all ages can do it. I first started teaching second and third grade class my son was in, and the kids, they were totally entertained with this. They didn't even go out to recess. Then I did a kids college for several years that was 4th to 5th graders. And as long as you are consistent with whatever you're doing, these eggs just turn out awesome. And it doesn't matter what kind of artistic ability or actually, fine motor skills, I guess, you have. It seems like everybody can do this. So that makes it kind of nice. Because some art, I don't know, it's almost like you need a little bit of a innate ability to do it. But this is very forgiving. Okay, so here the egg is empty. So, and I'll usually let that one just kind of dry out. And I just leave that yolk in there. It kind of, you can, I think it acts like a glue in there and makes these a little bit more stable, So this is the one that I have the hole in there already. And before I go any further, I should tell you that these are tools are called kiskas. This is what they consider a traditional kiska, and I'm sure that's what my grandmother was trying to replicate from what she knew from the old country, was something similar to this kiska. And they now make these really nice Delrinian kiska tools, and this is a well that the wax goes in. And I'll just you take your wax, heat it, and then you can scoop wax into the kiska. There's a tiny little hole at the bottom of the funnel, and that's where your wax comes out. And I'll just, now that I have this heated up, I'll do a couple lines here. And I'm not really writing with this as much as I have that well tipped to the side, and the wax is flowing out the end of that tube. This white one is a fine, and then this blue is a medium, and then there's a large. And I usually use this large to fill my little hole here so that I can pop these into the into the dye. So I just fill the wax in the hole there. So, and that egg is ready to start to design. The dyes are a non-food, non-edible dye. So what my grandmother did is we called it peasant eggs because it's one color. She could do them fairly quickly, and it was just, this is just Pez dye. And look how long Pez dye lasts, which is pretty good because these are probably 30 years old or more. These three right here that have the Pez dye on it, so that's pretty good. So I can be working on these at all these different stages, and in a day's time I can probably produce 4 eggs, I'd say, maybe, if that's all I do. So it probably takes, if you just count one egg, it still takes probably 3 or 4 hours because you have to dye it, then come back to it, dye it, come back to it. So it is a process that way. This one is a real ornate egg, and the ornate eggs take a lot longer. Like I'll work on one of those while I'm working on 2 or 3 other a little more simple designs, because this will take so much longer in between colors to do because you're going into such detail. Around, these are the Neolithic Trypillian style of eggs and pottery. These eggs look really similar to me to Navajo or that type of style. And these were done, somewhere around 5000 BC. Not these exact eggs, but the pottery and the designs they found were from around that time. And of course, at that time, there was no Christianity or anything. And you can see that these follow, a lot of just simple linear designs and that kind of thing. And around 2000, then at the advent of Christ, the eggs started to become Christian-based. They've been handed down for generations, through the generations of the Ukrainian people. They're famous world over for their colorful eggs. Over 2,000 years ago, before the time of Christ, people decorated eggs, believing that great powers were embodied in the egg. To them, eggs symbolize the release of the earth from the shackles of winter and the coming of spring with the promise of new hope, new life, and prosperity. With the advent of Christianity, Easter eggs symbolize the resurrection and a promise of eternal life. Legend has it, as long as Pasanki are decorated, goodness will prevail over evil throughout the world. That it's a symbol of life. So a lot of the more Christian-based designs, where you have like a simple rose like this, is actually the symbol of Christ, or true roses, or a seven-pointed star. This one is a nest bowl. We did it for the empty bowl and donated it to their silent auction. And so here's the nest bowl, and then I wanted to make something that looked more a bird related to the nest, of course, and natural or more realistic. And it's amazing. You can indeed do that with these eggs. So you can get pretty ornate. There's a snowy owl and a meadowlark and geese on the eggs. And I just like looking at it. Just soothing or something. I have bowls just of eggs just sitting out, and I never get tired of them. I don't know.
My name is Paul Pacini, and I do black and white photography with film, and I really enjoy coloring the black and white photographs, the prints, with lithographic ink. I'm a retired school teacher. I taught physical science at Helena Middle School, and I taught photography at Capitol High School before digital cameras. And when I took the job at Capitol, I knew very little, if anything, about hand coloring. However, I was going through some of the materials in the classroom from the previous teacher, and there was a video on hand coloring. So in making my original lesson plans, I took a look at that video and thought, that might be an interesting thing to do. So that's how I got into it. The coloring process is, a lot of people ask me if I color the negative or the print. It is the print. And I use a lithographic ink, which is the same kind of ink that you'd use for printing a magazine or a flyer of some sort. I use just three primary colors, so I mix all my own colors. And then it's applied with cotton. A cotton ball if it's a large area, maybe a Q-tip if it's a little bit smaller area, and if it's fine detail like mortar between bricks, I would use a toothpick with cotton just twisted onto the toothpick. So that's the basic technique. I guess an important thing to know is when you're hand coloring, it's not the application of the colors that's so important, it's the removal of the colors. Because, for example, if you're using a cotton ball, I would take the cotton ball and put some paint on it and just put it all over the picture in the area that I want that color. And then I'd have to go back and take the color off of the areas that I don't want to be that particular color. When you're doing the blue sky, you just go around the cloud and you don't worry about going over the lines. You know, like when you're a kid using a color book, your mother tells you to stay in the lines. But that's not the case with hand coloring.
Yeah.
You actually want to go over the lines, because if you stop short of the line, even though you're very close, if you don't stop exactly right, the eye actually sees that little space that you left blank before you got to the line. The ink is transparent. You can think of it like laying a piece of colored plastic over the picture. It doesn't change the picture. The picture is the picture, but it's a different color. And so if you want to, for example, in portraits, hand coloring used to be used a lot for portraits. And you might have like a pimple right here that you want to get rid of, and so your photographer might say, well, we can paint that out. That's a similar technique, but they're using a different kind of paint. It's an opaque paint. My ink is transparent, and so you can't improve, you can't change the image in any way. You can only make it a different color. Photographs of a lot of photographs of Montana and other places in the U.S., Florida and places like that, but probably half of my collection is Italy, because I've spent a lot of time in Italy, and I've gone over 3 times in the last 5 or 6 years and spent 2.5 to 3 months working on organic farms. And I've always got my camera, so I'm taking a lot of photographs of Italy. So a lot of these photographs are Italian. In fact, this year we have a special treat, because we accepted an exchange student, and guess where the exchange student is from? Italy. In fact, Gustavo, why don't you come over here and we'll introduce you. His name is Gustavo, and he's from a small town that's near Naples. And what's the name of the town that you're from?
Avellino.
Avellino. And he'll be with us for the entire year. He's a senior at Capitol High School. I do have some photographs, a photographic technique that I've been experimenting with. It's printing on wallpaper. And I've got a few around the house here that you can look at. I've taken some of my ordinary 11 by 14 hand-colored prints and digitized them. And I digitized them simply by using a copy stand, attaching a 35 millimeter, or excuse me, a digital camera to the copy stand, taking a picture of my print. And so then I can take that digital copy down to a local print shop and have them print the same image onto wallpaper and expand it from 11 by 14 to 27 by 32, which I originally thought would probably damage the integrity of the image and probably bring out any flaws that happen to be in the photo and emphasize them. But I was very impressed to see that there was very little of that happened. The images actually turned out to be quite impressive, and maybe I'm a little biased, but I thought they're impressive. And so I've framed some of them, and you'll see them around the house.
My name's Susanna Nadia, and I guess artist would be good, pretty vague, but broad. I try to focus on painting mostly, and that includes just many avenues. I guess painting is what I'd like to focus on specifically, even though I did get a double major with graphic design and fine art, because so many people can do graphic design, and you know, the tendency to do painting and fine art seems a bit more rare, so I figure I should kind of go with it. I was always the artist when I was going to Broadwater School, actually grade school, and then just continued through C.R. Anderson, the middle school, and of course at Capitol High. I took all the art classes I could, and yeah, I think it got to the point where 4 periods were art classes. I think there's like some natural talent, and then support not only of my parents, but then classmates, community. When the Holter first opened up 25 years ago, I had a ribbon there for the youth electrum. So just a whole bunch of support, and yeah, it makes me happy. I did this mural downtown. So there's me painting. This was right after college, right after I moved to Seattle the second time. It's dated 2003, so like 9 years ago. And it was, it's in front of the Gaia building still, and the owner of the building likes the mural so much that he's pretty much decided to keep it there, so that's great. I also do canvas work. There's one of my pieces, and this is a mixed media piece, so it's more than just painting. It's actually a photo transfer of a photograph of the cathedral, and then I'm kind of making up the sky and the greenery and whatnot. So this is a technique I learned in art school in Poulsbo, Washington, which is pretty close to Seattle. So it's a good way to get the specifics of the architecture in, because I like to focus more on the color and the feeling. Love bright colors, and actually I use paints right out of the tube a lot of times just to get the potency. So I love things that make me happy and energetic. And I started with this fish years ago, and people just love the fish. This one's Big Fatty, and he is in a house here in Helena actually with a number of other fish and a mermaid. And then the fish just kind of took off, so I've got more fish. This one, Bobby, is actually hanging up right here in the gallery right now. So an acrylic is such an easy medium to work with. You know, it's fast, and it's pretty much non-toxic, and just ready to go, you know, whenever I am. I love the horses. I don't know what it is. Women and horses, I mean, men love them too, but it's like the horse almost seems to embody the spirit of the woman. I don't know what it is about them. I've never owned a horse myself, but I've had several rancher ladies and whatnot say that I've just captured the horse perfectly, and I guess it's more along the spirit of the animal as opposed to like the specific, you know, physical traits of one. But I incorporate those too, of course. And then the bright colors, try to get a specific feeling across, and usually a positive feeling. I know there's a lot of art that is a bit darker and more negative, and that's fine, except that I want to feel good and positive. So that's why I choose the bright colors and the happy subjects. This painting was recently completed, and it's a photograph of a rose I had in Seattle at one of the little houses I rented there in the Greenwood area, which is just a bit north of Seattle. So I love that house, and this rose I got from one of the farmers markets there. I think it was the Kirkland Wednesday market, and the coloring was so beautiful on it, and I just loved it. And you know, so it reminds me of I guess everything that made me happy in Seattle, and so I decided to have a little piece of it here. So this is an acrylic, and I was also at the time like listening to some music that really inspired me and an audiobook that inspired me. So I put a lot of how I feel into the piece, and I try to make it like the most beautiful feelings that I have, that I'd like to kind of put out there in the universe and just let, I guess, ripple out. So So, and this is also a photograph I took. And these roses were down at Valley Farms, which is right off of Green Meadow. And I was having a great time there with my dad and grandpa. My grandpa just recently moved here from New Jersey, and he's just loving life at the, it's called Touchmark now, but it was the Waterford. And so we were on one of our many excursions out, and so I noticed they had all these great roses there, and I just started shooting them, and this was the one I liked the best. So, and it's, again, it's more about expression and the joy of the color as opposed to like the specific photographic realness of it. I love the figurative stuff, love figures, and I love swirly hair and all kinds of like emotion and whatnot. I also really, I feel the connection to like the Mother Earth, and I made the female figure more the Mother Earth, and then the male figure is more like a Father Sky. So that's another interpretation if you're so inclined. You know, there's a lot of time to focus here. There was a lot more distractions when I lived in the Seattle area, and they were delightful, and I miss them. However, I didn't get a lot of paintings done. So to be back here is definitely, the creation is just going and going. And in my portfolio that I have at the market and whatnot, most of the pieces in here were done when I was in Helena. So Helena is a great place for me to create and focus on it. I'm always available for any custom orders or any specific commissions, so contact me if you want, come see my art. Pretty much a one-woman show, so, you know, whatever anyone wants done or any questions answered. I mean, I do everything, about everything. But I do love the farmer's market. You know, that's what I did in Seattle, the market scene and stuff. And I felt at home with the vendors there. And, you know, it's just fun to have your own thing. And then it's kind of a certain community feeling. And, you know, it's nice to see what other people are doing, you know, your neighbors and stuff around. And I feel that way with my art. You know, I want to make a positive thing that's joyful and pleasant, and kind of have that just go out into the world. For me personally, there's enough negativity and struggle and hardship, so I want my art to like be a place of calmness and serenity and peace.
I'm Eli Smith with Sweet Logs, and we make custom furniture, log furniture, unique designs, tables, chairs, just abstract stuff that you don't normally see. The beetle kill problem we have here, it's kind of how it started out. I built a log chest for my son out of a dead tree that was on our property, and then somebody saw it, wanted to buy it, so I said, well, I can build another one. And next thing you know, I'm building log chests and chairs, and we make little kids' hobbit sets, dining room tables, all kinds of different things that kind of all started by accident, really. Well, I've always kind of been handy, but I just took my chainsaw and started whittling away this and that, and next thing you know, I'm got a table or a chair or a log chest. So took a lot of screw-ups, but I've started making a fairly decent product, I think, and have a lot of fun doing it. We try to hunt for big pieces of beetle kill. We only use dead trees, so the beetle kill is my favorite because it has so many different colors, and the grain comes alive when you open it up. You have no idea what you're opening up until you get into it and start sanding. And some stuff I find that I'm gonna like, and then I cut it open, and end up using it for firewood and other stuff that I don't think is going to be pretty. I open it up, it's one of the most beautiful pieces I've ever found. So we try to incorporate unique stuff that that I wouldn't normally use into everyday useful art. The tables, chairs, things that you can use in your home, in your garden, on your porch, your business. We'd like to bring the nature to you. I love the beetle kill. It's an unfortunate thing to happen to the forest around here, but it makes such pretty wood, and I've learned a lot about the process that the trees go through when they die, and every day is kind of a learning experience for me. Some wood acts a little different than others, and I always hunt for that one gem that's got so much blue in it that just blows your mind when you see it. I found one yesterday, and I got set aside for next year's projects. I'm pretty excited about it. The center part of the tree is dead to begin with. It's unused wood. It's the old wood. The outer layer of the sapwood is the live part of the tree, and that's where the fungus penetrates, and that's what causes the bluing. It's called blue stain fungus, and it rides in the mouth of the pine bark beetle, which the pine bark beetle only eats the cambium of the tree. That's the meaty part between the bark and the wood itself, and it injects the fungus into the tree, which stops the tree from putting out sap. That's the fungus, their symbiotic relationship between the fungus and the beetle. Without each other, they wouldn't exist. So it stops the fungus stops the tree from sapping the bugs out, and ends up killing the tree actually. So it dries it out, and then the tree dies, and we're left with all the red and brown trees around here. I break my back pretty much on a daily basis. Some of the stuff is upwards of 1,500 pounds when I start. So I do what I can. I hollow it out with my chainsaw as much as I can, then I'll roll it and use a stick for leverage or whatever, and push and pull and try and get it close as my truck as I can. Some of the stuff's a couple miles away, so I ended up putting it on my back and hiking it out that way, or rolling it down the hills. Me and my wife just rolled a couple of chairs about half a mile a piece, and they're 200 pounds to start with, so end over end, and got them into the truck and started carving them out from there. Well, we have no idea really what we're going to start with. I just find a couple pieces I think are going to look pretty nice together, and every once in a while I'll hold a piece back and just wait for that perfect situation. So well, we decided to make a couple of stools last year, and they had backrests on them, and needed someplace to put your feet, because we had just individual bar stools and little pedestal tables about 10 inches, 12 inches around, and I've cut a couple of notches in the table, put your feet up on. And I thought, well, maybe someplace to put your feet on the stool, and they still weren't that as comfortable as I wanted, so I cut the back off of them, and they're really simple to make, but they show off a lot of the color in the wood. And no, this is nothing stained. It's all natural look. I try to find products that when I put it on top, it doesn't take away or add something to the wood. Just I like the beauty of the nature itself. So it's a real shame that the bugs have killed the trees, because we do deal with some old growths, 400-year-old trees, and it's a real shame to see them get hit by the bugs. But we try to find a way for them to live on. So hopefully for generations. Everything we do is local. I know that, and I take pride in everything I do. I always worry a piece isn't going to be quite perfect, when I give to somebody. So there's a few at a local brewery here in town that I stop in and have a beer and check on every once in a while, just to make sure that I make something that's quality, and I don't get to enjoy my own pieces very often because we live in a very small house. So it's nice to sit down and have a beer and one of the tables I made. And